Hello there, my name is Gary Sims from Android Authority. One of the most important uses of a single board computer is as a rapid prototyping and development platform. Recently I reviewed the Hummingbird SBC from Solid Run. And as they say, the proof is in the pudding. That's why Solid Run has used their own technology to build a truly miniature PC. And here it is, the CuBox. At just 2 inches by 2 inches by 2 inches, the CuBox is a marvel of engineering. On one side of the cube is a set of ports including the power socket, HDMI, Ethernet and 2 USB ports. The rest of the cube is fairly bland. To fully understand the innards of the CuBox, you should check out the full review of the Hummingbird. But in short, the CuBox uses Freescale's IMX6 processor. The IMX6 range is based on ARM's Cortex-A9 design and scales from single to quad core. The CuBox comes in 2 variants, a dual-core version, the CuBox-i2EX, and a quad-core version, the CuBox-i4 Pro. Other than the 2 extra cores, the i4 Pro comes with 2 gigs of RAM rather than 1 gig, and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth are included by default rather than being an option. My test unit is the dual-core version. One of the primary uses of the CuBox is as a media player. Since the Cube supports Android and Linux, there are several ways of achieving this. For example, you could use Android with an app like Netflix, or you could use Linux with a media player like Kodi. Solid Run provides a couple of Linux distributions that boot straight into Kodi. One is Geekbox and the other is OpenELEC, or Open Embedded Linux Entertainment Center. OpenELEC is a small Linux distribution that turns the CuBox into a Kodi media center. In fact, you can order a microSD card preloaded with OpenELEC when you buy the CuBox. This makes using Kodi a breeze. Just boot up the CuBox and you're straight into the media player. I did a brief test by inserting a USB stick with some MP4 files. The USB stick was recognised by the CuBox without any problems. I was able to navigate to the files from within Kodi and play the videos. The playback was smooth and the sound goes through the HDMI cable to the TV. One of the great features of Kodi is there are Android apps which act as a remote control. I downloaded Yast, the XBMC/Kodi remote, and tried it out with the version of OpenELEC running on the CuBox. The app found the CuBox straight away and I was able to control Kodi quite easily. If you want to try another operating system, then Solid Run has a special firmware called Ignition, which allows you to easily download new firmwares. First, you need to download Ignition from Solid Run's website and write it onto a memory card using Win32 Disk Imager. Then you boot the CuBox with the Ignition firmware and use its UI to pick which operating system you want to use. Ignition will then automatically download the OS and write it onto the microSD card. Once copied, you just reboot the CuBox and the new OS will start. If you want a Linux distro that isn't on the official list in Ignition, there are plenty of community provided distros which can be written directly onto a microSD card. You can find full instructions on Solid Run's website. The CuBox is compatible with Android and currently runs Android 4.4 KitKat. It is one of the official firmwares that you can download via Ignition. The Android experience is pretty good, and for the most part you'll get the same experience you would from a smartphone or a tablet, sans the touchscreen. Like the Hummingbird, the CuBox-i version of Android includes Google Apps, so you get access to the Play Store as well as other Google services like Gmail, G+, YouTube and so on. The performance of the CuBox is basically the same as the Hummingbird i2EX. The benchmark scores from the Hummingbird i2EX review apply here, i.e. the CuBox scored around 12,000 on Antutu, and for Epic Citadel you get frame rates of around 24 to 28 FPS. For media playback, the CuBox supports accelerated decoding for a large number of video standards including MPEG-4, XVID, H.264, H.263 and VP8. I tested the CuBox using YouTube and Netflix, both ran without any problems. The only minor problem with Android on the CuBox is it doesn't recognise flash drives when they are plugged into the USB port. This isn't something that most Android users try with their smartphones, so it isn't surprising it doesn't work. The Hummingbird i2EX had exactly the same problem. It is an Android specific issue, as USB drives work fine under Linux and OpenELEC. There are several different Linux distributions available for the CuBox, many via Ignition. On the list you'll find popular names like Debian, Arch and OpenSUSE. Unfortunately, many of the distros come without a desktop and you'll need to log in via the command line interface. That doesn't mean you can't add a desktop, but extra effort is required. One exception is OpenSUSE. During the Ignition installation, you can opt to install XFCE. After the initial installation, you'll be taken through a text-based wizard which configures a few things about OpenSUSE. Once the configuration installation is complete, you'll have a full XFCE desktop and you'll have access to quite a wealth of applications. Programs like Firefox and GIMP are pre-installed and you always have the choice to add more. As I said before, there's quite a strong community behind the Hummingboard and the CuBox, so there's no shortage of Linux distributions. And for those who want to hack, port, code and tinker, then the CuBox offers just as many opportunities as any of the other popular SBCs or mini PCs. The Cortex-A9 cores using the i.MX6 are more advanced than the Cortex-A7 cores using the Raspberry Pi 2. For example, the Cortex-A9 supports out-of-order execution, while the A7 doesn't. On paper at least, a quad-core Cortex-A9 processor should be faster than a quad-core Cortex-A7 processor. The CuBox is certainly an interesting mini PC. It offers a lot of flexibility since its support for Android and Linux is excellent and excels at running Kodi. The design of the Cube is neat and inspirational. The box itself is unimposing, but yet when noticed it will impress. It's a clever way of turning a television into a smart TV or a media player. You can buy the CuBox right now from Solid Run's website at just $120. And there it is. My name is Gary Sims from Android Authority. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to subscribe to Android Authority's YouTube channel. A big shout out to my brothers at Android Authority, Jace, Joe, Josh, Lan, Kevin the Tech Ninja, Ash and Taylor Martin. And as for me, I'll see you in my next video.
Very small cubes. That's new.